Hey guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and to kick off Fairytale Fortnight, I have for you my top 10 favorite fairytale retellings. Number 5, Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This one is a bit of a change from the rest on the list. It's a retelling of Cinderella, but it's a futuristic cyborg retelling. It's very fun, it's very clever. Interesting use of the tale for sure. It doesn't necessarily go some of the dark places that a few of the other tales that I've mentioned went to. It's much more a fun read, but not a fluffy read for all that. It's very fun and it's very interesting and quirky, but for me at least it's not a throwaway. And it has really memorable characters. I think Cinder is one of my favorite fairy tale heroines. Number 4, Breadcrumbs by Anne Ursu. This is a middle grade retelling of The Snow Queen, which again, one of my favorite tales, and one that doesn't get enough love in the retellings. For being middle grade, it is very unflinching and dark, and it kind of uses the tale in a modern setting to really get at the heart of not only the characters, but just people and what it means to feel like an outsider, what it means to be lonely, what it means to be going through, a kid going through divorce or being neglected, or, childhood friendships. There are so many things that Ursu just captured perfectly, and with a depth and a sort of bittersweetness that I wasn't expecting, and that really impressed me. Number 3, Wildwood Dancing by Juliet Marillier. This one is a retelling of The 12 Dancing Princesses, which was my favorite story as a kid. It does touch on some other tales and kind of work them in, but it does The 12 Dancing Princesses beautifully. That's a story that's gaining in popularity in the retellings. You are seeing more of them, but I think Marillier knocked it out of the park. I don't know that anyone else will top it, and she captured all of my favorite elements from the original tale, but made them much richer and made it so atmospheric and real that I think those that read it going in and don't know that it's a fairy tale retelling aren't necessarily going to feel like they've heard the story before. Sometimes you can pick up something that's based on Cinderella, it's Cinderella at some point because it's kind of obvious. But Wildwood Dancing's not like that. It's very much its own tale. It stands on its own two legs, and I really respect that. It's a very rich, very detailed telling, and I absolutely adore Gogu the frog and want my own Gogu. Number 2, Sun and Moon, Ice and Snow by Jessica Day George. This one retells East of the Sun, West of the Moon, which again is another somewhat obscure tale, but one of my favorites. East of the Sun, West of the Moon is sort of a take on Beauty and the Beast, with the Beast being a polar bear. It's a very Northern Europe type of story. And Sun and Moon, Ice and Snow does that tale really well, and Beauty and the Beast is one of those that can kind of be a little icky because, he's a beast. And it stems from the Cupid and Psyche stories from mythology, where Psyche wasn't allowed to ever see the man that was climbing into her bed at night. It's this whole trust story that can get a little creepy and a little rapey. And then when you throw in an actual beast, an actual monster, it can get a little more so. So that's a difficult story to tackle, I think. And Jessica Day George did it really well, and it was never actually creepy with her. It was really believable, and there was a good relationship development there. And another thing that I love is it's another non-traditional main character. Her name is the Lass. She doesn't have a name. They just call her the Lass. And that's another risk, because you can alienate your audience if they don't even have a name to call the character, then they maybe can't connect as well. And I know people that haven't connected as well and didn't like it for that reason, but I thought that it worked perfectly. Number 1, Daughter of the Forest by Juliet Marillier. This one is always at the top of the list because it's not just my favorite fairy tale retelling, but one of my favorite books just in general across the board. Aside from the clunky first 30 or 40 pages, the rest of it just blew me away. It's one that I know I will read regularly throughout my life and still get the same chills and feel the same emotions that I did when I read it the first time. It's a retelling of The Six Swans, which is kind of a more obscure tale, but one of my favorites. The main character, Sorka, is one of my absolute favorite heroines, and I think a real feat on Marillier's part because she's silent. She's a silent character for a good, probably 90% of the book, and it can be really hard, I think, to make someone love a personality when they don't get to say anything through words, or to build the development and the emotions and connections with all of the other characters when they're silent and they're an outsider in the society. So really, really stunning from that point. I think it's also the best, most butterfly-y romance that I've ever read. So those are my top 10 for now. I'm sure they're apt to change because I've still got plenty of fairy tales on my list that I want to read, and there are always more coming out. I highly doubt anything will ever knock Daughter of the Forest from that top spot, but if you have a book that you think will, let me know in the comments and I will definitely put it on my list. If you have your own top 5 or top 10 list, feel free to make your own response or blog post and you can link it up for Fairy Tale Fortnight, or you can tell us in the comments, of course. I'll have plenty more fairy tale stuff to bring you this week, and there are a lot of giveaways and goodies going on over at the Book Rat, as well as a number of other blogs, so make sure you stop by and check all of those out, and I will see you again soon. Happy reading!